What if the person you've spent your entire life trying to protect isn't actually who you are? Think about it. Your name. Your reputation. Your achievements. The way people see you. The mistakes you're ashamed of. The things you're proud of. The image you carry in your own mind. You defend all of it. You protect it. You polish it. You become angry when someone questions it. You become afraid when someone threatens it. And slowly, without realizing it, you begin to believe that this image is you. But what if it isn't? What if the you've been defending your entire life is nothing more than a story? A story built from memories, judgments, fear, success, failure, and the opinions of other people. There is an old Zen story about a thief who walked into a temple expecting punishment, and walked out having discovered something he had never experienced before. Someone who saw him without seeing him as a thief. And what happened that day reveals something uncomfortable about all of us. Because the ego doesn't always hide in arrogance. Sometimes it hides in judgment. It was a warm afternoon in Japan. The temple was crowded. People had traveled from distant villages to hear the Zen master Bankei speak. Some had walked for days. Others had traveled for weeks. Farmers sat beside merchants. Monks sat beside travelers. Old people sat beside young people. Everyone had come for the same reason. They wanted to hear Bankei speak about the mind. Bankei was famous for the simplicity of his teaching. He didn't tell people that they needed to become extraordinary. He didn't tell them they had to collect secret knowledge. He spoke about what he called the unborn mind. A mind that was already present before people began building stories about themselves. Before the labels. Before the reputation. Before the endless effort to become somebody. That afternoon, the temple hall was unusually quiet. Bankei sat at the front. His voice was calm. His students listened carefully. Outside, the summer heat hung in the air. Cicadas sang from the trees. A warm breeze moved through the open doors. Everything seemed peaceful. Until a man entered the back of the hall. Nobody paid much attention to him. He looked poor. His clothes were worn. His face was thin. His eyes moved constantly around the room. He wasn't there to listen to Bankei. He was watching the people. Watching their belongings. Watching their bags. Waiting. Then he saw an opportunity. An elderly woman sitting near the back had placed a small pouch beside her. The man waited. He looked toward Bankei. Everyone's attention was focused on the teacher. The thief slowly reached toward the pouch. His fingers touched it. He hesitated. Then he picked it up. But just as he tried to pull it away, the woman turned. She saw him. Her eyes widened. Then she shouted, "Thief!" The peaceful hall exploded into chaos. Everyone turned. Several men jumped to their feet. The thief tried to move toward the door. He didn't get far. Two men grabbed him. Another seized his arm. Someone pushed him to the ground. The pouch fell from his hand. The old woman picked it up. "My money!" she shouted. "He stole from me." The crowd gathered around the thief. People were angry. Very angry. Someone shouted, "Beat him." Another said, "Take him outside. Make an example of him." The thief said nothing. He sat on the floor with his head lowered. His hands were shaking. He knew what was coming. He had seen this before. He knew the look in people's eyes. It was the look of people who had already decided what you were. He wasn't a person anymore. He was a thief. A criminal. A bad man. An enemy. And once people decide what you are, it becomes very difficult for them to see anything else. The men dragged him toward Bankei. "Master," one of them said. "What should we do with him?" Another man stepped forward. "He should be punished. He stole from an old woman. He has probably done this many times. People like him never change." The crowd began agreeing. The thief kept staring at the floor. He waited for Bankei to speak. Perhaps he expected the master to condemn him. Perhaps he expected to be thrown out. Perhaps he expected the same thing he had always received. Anger. Humiliation. Punishment. Then Bankei raised his hand. The room became silent. He looked at the thief. Not for a second. Not casually. He looked at him for a long time. The thief slowly raised his eyes. Bankei's face showed no anger. No disgust. No fear. Then Bankei said, "Release him." Nobody moved. One of the men looked confused. "But master," Bankei repeated. "Release him." Slowly, the men loosened their grip. The thief remained on the floor. The old woman looked at Bankei. "But he stole from me." Bankei nodded. "Yes." The room was silent. Bankei continued. "He did something wrong. But he is not the wrong he has done." The words hung in the air. Nobody knew what to say. Bankei looked at the thief. "You already know what you have done." The thief looked down again. Bankei continued. "You don't need us to hate you in order to understand it." Something changed in the thief's face. His eyes became wet. He had expected everyone to tell him what he was. Bad. Worthless. Criminal. Instead, Bankei was telling him something completely different. "You did something wrong. But you are not nothing but your wrongdoing." There was a difference. A difference the thief had never really considered. Bankei pointed toward the floor. "Sit." The thief hesitated. Then slowly, he sat down. Nobody spoke. The old woman stood there holding her pouch. She looked at the thief. The thief looked at the floor. The men who had grabbed him returned to their places. One by one, everyone sat down. The hall became quiet again. Outside, the cicadas continued singing. It was almost as if nothing had happened. But something had happened. Something very important. Bankei had stopped the crowd from turning a human being into a label. And this is where the story becomes uncomfortable. Because most of us would like to believe we are nothing like that crowd. We would like to think that if we were there, we would have been compassionate. We would have understood. We would have forgiven. But would we? Imagine someone stealing from you. Imagine someone hurting someone you love. Imagine someone behaving in a way you find completely unacceptable. How quickly does your mind create a story about them? They're a terrible person. They're selfish. They're dangerous. They're not like us. And suddenly, you don't see the person anymore. You see the label. The ego loves this. Because the moment you decide someone else is bad, you get to become good. The moment someone else becomes the villain, you become the hero. The moment someone else is beneath you, you get to stand above them. And this is one of the ego's favorite hiding places. Judgment. We rarely notice how much pleasure judgment can give us. Someone makes a mistake. We immediately notice. Someone fails. We feel superior. Someone behaves badly. We tell ourselves, "I would never do that." Someone loses control. We say, "What kind of person behaves like that?" But underneath the judgment is often something much simpler. Fear. The ego is afraid. It wants distance. It wants certainty. It wants to know. I am safe because I am not like them. And so it creates categories. Good people. Bad people. Smart people. Stupid people. Successful people. Failures. People who belong. People who don't. But the Zen masters understood something that is difficult to accept. These boundaries are not as solid as we think. A person is not a single action. A person is not a single mistake. A person is not a reputation. A person is not even a personality. People change. People become afraid. People become desperate. People become confused. People make terrible decisions. And sometimes, people change again. The thief in Bankei's temple had done something wrong. There was no need to pretend otherwise. But Bankei refused to make his wrongdoing into his entire identity. And perhaps this is what made transformation possible. Think about what happens when you make someone feel completely worthless. Do they suddenly become better? Usually not. They become defensive. They become ashamed. They hide. They lie. They protect themselves. They begin fighting the image that other people have created for them. But when someone looks at you and says, "I see what you did. I know it was wrong. But I can still see you as a human being," something different happens. You no longer need to spend all your energy defending yourself. You can finally face what you've done. And this is exactly what Bankei gave the thief. Not an excuse. Not permission. Not escape from responsibility. He gave him the possibility of seeing himself without the mask. The thief had spent his life running from punishment. Now, for perhaps the first time, someone was asking him to stop running. Sit down. Look at what you've done. And listen. The thief stayed. Bankei continued teaching. The man listened quietly. Nobody knows exactly what happened to him afterward. Maybe he changed immediately. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he returned to stealing. Maybe he struggled for years. Real human beings rarely transform as neatly as stories suggest. But something important had happened. For one afternoon, he was not treated as a monster. He was treated as a human being. And perhaps that was enough to create a crack in the identity he had built around himself. Because the ego doesn't only say, "I am better than everyone." Sometimes it says, "I am worthless. I am a failure. I am a bad person. I always ruin everything. I can never change." That is still ego. It is still an identity. The positive ego says, "I am special." The negative ego says, "I am hopeless." But both are saying the same thing. I know exactly who I am. And Zen asks us to question that certainty. Are you really the person you think you are? Or are you constantly changing? Think about your childhood. You once believed you were that child. You had fears, dreams, friends, ideas. You thought certain things were important. Then you grew up. That person changed. Your body changed. Your beliefs changed. Your friendships changed. Your ambitions changed. Your personality changed. Yet somewhere inside, you still say, "This is me." But what exactly is the me? Is it your body? Your body has changed. Is it your thoughts? Your thoughts change every few seconds. Is it your memories? Your memories change too. Is it your reputation? That exists inside other people's minds. Is it your possessions? They can disappear tomorrow. So what is this self we spend so much energy defending? Perhaps it is partly a story. A story we tell ourselves so life feels continuous. And there is nothing necessarily wrong with having a story. The problem begins when we forget that it is a story. Then we become its prisoner. Someone criticizes the story. And we feel attacked. Someone questions the story. And we become defensive. Someone threatens the story. And we become angry. Someone takes away one of the things supporting the story. And we feel like we are disappearing. This is why reputation matters so much to the ego. If people think you're successful, you feel successful. If people think you're intelligent, you feel intelligent. If people think you're kind, you feel kind. But what happens when someone thinks the opposite? Suddenly, your peace depends on someone else's opinion. And that's a dangerous way to live. Because you are trying to control something you cannot control. Other people's minds. Other people's judgments. Other people's approval. Bankei's story asks us to step out of that game. Not by becoming indifferent. Not by pretending we don't care. But by realizing that other people's judgments do not define the whole of who we are. And neither do our own judgments. You can make a mistake. Without becoming the mistake. You can fail. Without becoming a failure. You can lose. Without becoming a loser. You can hurt someone. And still take responsibility without deciding that you are beyond redemption. And you can see someone else's wrongdoing. Without needing to turn them into an enemy. This doesn't mean allowing harmful behavior. Compassion is not the same as permission. Bankei did not say, stealing doesn't matter. He said, don't confuse the act with the entire human being. That distinction is incredibly powerful. Because when we stop reducing people to labels, we can respond to reality instead of reacting to our stories. And maybe this applies to ourselves more than anyone else. How often do you replay your own mistakes? Something you said 10 years ago. A relationship you destroyed. A decision you regret. A failure you still haven't forgiven yourself for. You remember it. You feel the shame. And then you silently say, this is who I am. But is it? Or is it something you did? There is a difference. A massive difference. The ego wants you to believe that your past is your identity. Because if you believe you are your past, you don't have to change. You simply have to keep repeating the same story. I've always been like this. This is just who I am. I can't change. But life is constantly changing. So why should you be the one thing that never does? The thief in Bankei's temple was not asked to pretend he hadn't stolen. He was asked to see beyond the label. And perhaps we need to do the same. The next time you catch yourself judging someone, pause. Not because judgment makes you a bad person, but because it is an opportunity. Ask yourself, what am I protecting right now? Maybe you are protecting your sense of superiority. Maybe you are protecting your sense of safety. Maybe you are protecting your identity as a good person. Maybe you're afraid that if you stop judging them, you won't know who you are. And that's the strange paradox. The ego believes judgment gives it strength. But judgment actually makes it fragile. Because if your identity depends on being better than someone else, you need someone beneath you forever. You need someone to criticize. Someone to blame. Someone to look down upon. Someone to prove that you are right. And what kind of freedom is that? Imagine waking up tomorrow and realizing you don't need anyone to be beneath you. You don't need to win every argument. You don't need to prove you're smarter. You don't need everyone to agree with you. You don't need to make someone else small so you can feel large. What would happen? Maybe you'd breathe a little easier. Maybe you'd listen more. Maybe you'd apologize faster. Maybe you'd become less afraid of being wrong. Maybe you'd stop performing. And maybe you would finally meet people as they actually are. Not as characters in the story inside your head. And perhaps that's what happened in Bankei's temple. For one brief afternoon, everyone stopped performing. The thief stopped pretending he was innocent. The crowd stopped pretending they were righteous. The woman stopped being only a victim. The men stopped being only protectors. Everyone became something simpler. Human. Vulnerable. Imperfect. Capable of harm. Capable of compassion. Capable of change. The cicadas continued singing outside. The sunlight slowly moved across the wooden floor. And the temple returned to silence. But somewhere in that silence, a very old illusion had been exposed. The illusion that there are fixed categories of people. The good ones. The bad ones. The worthy ones. The unworthy ones. The successful ones. The failures. The enlightened ones. The lost ones. Maybe people are not categories. Maybe we are all moving. Changing. Becoming. Unbecoming. Losing. Finding. Failing. Learning. Forgetting. Remembering. And if that is true, then perhaps the most dangerous thing we can do is freeze ourselves and everyone else into a single definition. This is who I am. This is who you are. Bankei refused to do that. He looked at the thief and saw more than the theft. Perhaps that is what real compassion is. Not pretending someone did nothing wrong, but refusing to believe that their worst moment is the whole truth about them. And maybe you can offer yourself the same compassion. Not excuses. Not denial. Compassion. Look honestly at your mistakes. Take responsibility. Repair what you can. Learn what you can. And then, let the identity go. You don't have to spend the rest of your life paying for something you have already learned from. The person who made that mistake may no longer exist. Because you are not exactly the same person you were yesterday. You are changing right now. Even as you listen to these words. Your thoughts are changing. Your feelings are changing. Your body is changing. Your attention is changing. Life is moving. And maybe the self you are trying so desperately to hold on to is moving too. So the next time someone insults you, pause. The next time someone makes a mistake, pause. The next time you feel superior, pause. The next time you feel ashamed, pause. And ask yourself one simple question. Am I seeing reality? Or am I protecting a story about who I am? You don't have to answer immediately. Just notice. Because perhaps the moment you see the ego clearly, it loses some of its power. And perhaps the greatest freedom is not becoming someone better. Perhaps it is realizing that you don't have to defend yourself every second. You can simply be here. A human being. Imperfect. Changing. Learning. Sometimes wrong. Sometimes right. Sometimes kind. Sometimes selfish. Sometimes afraid. Sometimes courageous. But never completely captured by one label. The thief walked into Bankei's temple expecting punishment. He walked out with something far more difficult. The responsibility of seeing himself clearly. And perhaps that is what Bankei was really offering. Not forgiveness from the crowd. Not permission to forget. But the possibility of beginning again. Because when we stop saying, "This is who I am," we create space for another possibility. I did this. But I don't have to remain this. And that possibility may be the beginning of freedom. So tonight, before you go, think about the person you have spent your life defending. The successful person. The good person. The intelligent person. The wounded person. The strong person. The person you want everyone to believe you are. And for just one moment, put that story down. You don't have to destroy it. You don't have to reject it. Just put it down. Take a breath. And ask. Who am I without the story? Don't rush to answer. Just sit with the question. Because perhaps the silence that follows is more truthful than any answer you could give.